Welcome. My name is Kevin Fulmer. I'm the director of the Alex Brown Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation here at UMBC, and it's my privilege to welcome you to the first event of the semester. Thank you for coming out. Tonight's event is sponsored by Galaxy, which is a cybersecurity company based in the UK, and just recently, earlier this year, opened their first US office at BW Tech. So tonight we're privileged to have the executive chairman of Galaxy, Sir George Zambellas, with us to speak about the first and only lesson in entrepreneurship, which frankly, if there's the first and only, I'm interested myself, so can't wait to hear this. But by way of introduction, Admiral Sir George Zambellas completed a 36-year military career serving in multiple capacities, including the first Sea Lord of Great Britain from 2013 to 2016, where he was responsible for delivering the UK's fighting navy, as well as 2 new Queen Elizabeth-class supercarriers, nuclear attack submarines, and new frigates. He's an engineer at heart, a pilot by passion, and first Sea Lord by profession, and now a cybersecurity entrepreneur. He graduated from the University of Southampton with honors in aeronautical and astronautical engineering, and holds the Distinguished Service Cross and the titled Knight Grand Cross of the Order of the Bath. Thank you. And
I'll explain what all of it is. It takes some explaining.
But please join me in welcoming Sir George Zambellas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kevin. It's very kind of you. It's fantastic that you're here. I hope you haven't been corralled with bribes of food and opportunities, business opportunities to be here. But what I hope I'm going to do with you this afternoon is, despite the way I'm dressed, what I look like, what I sound like, okay, I'm going to try and get across to you some of the truths about the life in business and business opportunities. So one of the things I'd just like to do before I even start is say, how many of you in this room would like to work for yourselves in the future rather than for somebody else? Okay, that's a really big show of hands, and that instinctively shows me that you really would like to be your boss of your own lives, to be an entrepreneur who has your own opportunities. Is that about right? Yes. And the thing about that, of course, is what you're really saying to me, without spelling it out, is you want to take the risk with your own journey. Okay? When you work for somebody else, you're transferring your efforts and your energy and your passion and your skills to another employer, but you're not necessarily carrying a deeply personal risk. You arrive at work, you do your job, you get paid, you go home, and you decide how you're going to spend your money, but you're not carrying a day-to-day risk with your business. So the story this afternoon I'm going to try and share with you is about that journey of risk in innovation and how you need to prepare yourselves if you want to do that. Okay, so first of all, I'm delighted to be here. This is an amazing university. It's got some incredible alumni stories, people involved in science and technology, in sport, in politics, in the DoD even, and you could well be one of the great alumni that come from here. What I would say to you right up front, I don't know whether you know this Zen dog poster. I love this. I've got a beer mat like this. I've got a coffee mat like this. I've got a t-shirt like this. He knows not where he's going. The ocean will decide. It's not the destination, but the glory of the ride. And what that means is, if you don't instinctively understand, it means that you and your journey are owned by you. You can't say where you're going to be. You can't say, I'm going to be the President of the United States. You can't say, I'm going to be Elon Musk Mark II. You just be yourself and do your job and let the ride take you. And that's what life's all about. So I love this. Okay, let's have some fun. So here I am, and there's a lot of flags. I had an amazing 36-year military career. I was very, very lucky to have that journey, and I'm going to explain why. Because for some of you who might feel that your own journey is held back by some reason to do with prejudice or with where you've come from or how much money you've got, don't ever let those prejudices in your head get through to where you think you belong. So that That guy in the top left-hand corner with a cracky moustache and the centre parting, anybody know who that might be? I doubt it. That's my grandfather, right? My grandfather was a Greek-speaking tugboat captain in the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal being North Africa and allowing access to the Indian Ocean. He could not speak a word of English, but he would nudge warships and passenger ships and merchant ships into line as they would enter the Suez Canal under the direction of a pilot. So he was in his tugboat with a chugging engine. He had no idea that the British warships that he lined up would one day be commanded by his grandson. How weird is that? Okay, what a journey. Sadly, of course, he's gone, as is my father, so neither of them can laugh, but my mother still laughs. She thinks it's ridiculous. But you cannot tell what that journey is going to look like. So if you've got a grandfather who's got a cracking moustache like that, okay, and the centre parting, all things are possible. And there are a couple of indications that this was going to go wrong for me. My mother put me in a sailor suit. Right? I hated the sea, and I had no intention of joining the Navy, that's for sure. So I don't know how that picture ever got taken. It must have been something to do with what mothers thought was a good idea in the 1960s. But I went through a journey, and that journey was an engineering journey, as you've heard from the director. And what happened was one day, I was writing software for a company in the UK for flight simulators, a relatively modest job, and a whole bunch of pilots came in and flew my simulator and criticized my software and went away. And I thought, I'm not having that. I'm not having that. I'm going to try and fly. And I joined the Navy to fly. And the training guy said to me, at the factory, said to me, you will fail, George. You will fail because only 1 in 50 guys gets through as a Navy pilot. But you try, and I made it. I became a pilot. And I served on warships. There's me with this magnificent beard. Okay? So if you've got a beard, you're in my camp. And we used to go to sea for 6 months at a time. There was no internet connectivity. You'd write letters to your girlfriend. And it was a different life. That's an American officer. And I'll come back to that. And then, can you believe it? There I am, some years later, looking younger, of course, next to one of the greatest queens in our history. And what an incredible journey, and a lucky journey for me, to have had a few opportunities in my life to be alongside and to work for Her Majesty in Her Majesty's Navy. So you might want to ask me some questions about that at the end. It was an extraordinary period. So just very briefly, I did go flying, and it was about a 10-year career. I started off in helicopters, so if your eyesight's really good, there's a bloke with a beard in there, that's me. We're talking about 1985 here, so you were not even a flicker in the eyes of your loved parents, but more recently flown in modern helicopters. And then, right at the back end of my time, almost as a gift to me as I left the service, there's me in the back of a US Navy F-18 over the valleys in California with a Royal Navy F-35B jet in close company. A complete culmination of a beautiful aviation experience for me. So I had a great time in the service, and I learned a lot, but most of it was centered around a love of technology. And one of the things that helps you if you have a tech background is you're unafraid to think in tech terms. So in my head, I often think in flow diagram terms. I have a logic in the way I approach things. And that's a kind of engineering thing, but it's also very helpful to get your thoughts in order. And that engineering background and that technology background helped me a lot. I just want to show you this one picture because the relationships that count are the ones you make that change the nature of big things. This is the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral John Greenert, one of your great American Navy leaders, and there's me on the left, and we're in London, and we're talking in the street. There's nobody else hanging around us carrying guns or protecting us from terrorists or any of that rubbish. We're just talking between one place and another, because the partnership between the Royal Navy and the United States Navy isn't just about the sea. It's actually about some really serious things, like nuclear propulsion, about underwater security through submarines, about intelligence, about protecting us all from terrorism. So these personal relationships are really important, and I'll come back to that as I go on in my story. That nuclear relationship with the Americans extends, as I said, to submarines. And here is HMS Artful, and here's a very cheerful looking bloke, that's me. And there's my beloved girl wearing a very pink and expensive coat. And we have produced nuclear submarines in the UK with the help of the United States Navy. And it goes back to 1956, and we had a technical agreement. So although I might look a bit different and sound different, we're part of an integrated security community that stretches across the Atlantic, and I'm incredibly proud of that. And you may not know any of those facts, but that's part of the extended relationship the US has overseas, and it's really important. So when you think about your servicemen and what they do, remember that you have an extended relationship with people like us who work together for many, many years. Okay, all that sounds good, doesn't it, folks? All that sounds very positive. Now I'm going to tell you, because we're talking about innovation and the challenges, what can go wrong. So when I took over as the Chief of the Navy, almost one of the first things that was said to me was, can you get rid of the carriers that you're building? Can you cancel those? We don't actually need them in the UK. They're very expensive. They're about 3.5 billion pounds, which sadly the exchange rate of the pound to dollar is about $3.5 billion, but we won't go there. Very expensive carriers. Get rid of those. They don't necessarily have a place in our defense structure. And as the boss who ran the service, and reflecting the thoughts of my predecessors who'd run the service, I knew that that was wrong. I knew that I had to have the courage to overcome those challenges that had been put in my way. And so I began a fight to promote the concept of those carriers. Now, just to show you how cynical the system can be, this was a cartoon in the Times newspaper, and the Times newspaper in London is probably the premier authority for newspapers. And it says very cynically, longer than the Houses of Parliament, 3 football pitches, 25 London buses, and 46 white elephants. In other words, it's a white elephant. And why are we getting it? So you go to work, I go to work, and the first thing you're facing, these kind of negative messages that are trying to change your mind. And so you begin this fight against the pressure to do things differently. And look what happened. The short story is that we prevailed. We fought through, we pushed through, we fought for the money, we explained the program, we got political support. And it's no different in the business world. You have to drive through, you have to drive forward, and you have to push for what you want. And you have to be single-mindedly enthusiastic and strong to prevail. And that carrier now carries not just British jets on it, but United States Marine Corps jets as well. And I remember the huge pleasure I had. I'd left the service, I was in technology, just reading that something that I'd been a small part of all those years before was now a carrier in the South China Seas carrying US and UK jets. And if any of you know your international law, you'll know that a ship is a piece of sovereign territory. A US Navy vessel is a piece of US Navy sovereign territory. When it parks alongside in the harbor, in a foreign port, it's American territory. Same for a British ship. So when you have American jets and British jets on the same carrier, you've got 2 nations worth of authority on one piece of territory. Incredibly powerful. Dare you sink it? No, you don't. You're taking 2 nations on sovereign territory if you do so. Of course, things happen in war and ships sink, but it's a powerful message when you have 2 nations working side by side. And what a success against the pressures that would try to stop you achieving that sort of thing. So if you're into aviation, this is kind of a fantastic picture. Stop immediately. Okay. Many of the great entrepreneurs and innovators have faced phenomenal pressures, opposition, and failure. I kind of like this because whether you use Dyson vacuum cleaners or not, for years I refused to because they just seemed to be so expensive. But anyway, Dyson said, I made 500 5,127 prototypes before I got it right. So there was one less than that number in failures. So he made so many changes to the technology to try and make sure that he could achieve technical success and therefore business success. I mean, how often must he have got up in the middle of the night and thought, what the hell am I doing this for? This is like a complete nightmare. This is going on forever. But in the end, and by the way, even when he got the damn vacuum cleaner working, there was no guarantee anybody was going to buy it, because everybody thought bags were the way ahead. So James Dyson, love him or not love him, you know, he's somebody who has been prepared to prevail. And old Mr. Musk, now, whatever you think of him, you've got to hand it to him. How many people are prepared to take failure after failure after failure and still keep going? How many people are prepared to pour a phenomenal amount of money when you sell one business like eBay and you pour it into a new business? How many people would take the risk that they do with Tesla shares and would put money into rocketry? Why? Because he's not interested in Tesla. He's interested in going to Mars. I mean, what kind of innovation madness is that? But that's his purpose. I have a young friend who's working with me in the West Coast for a small company, which I'll touch on later. And she left the company and she was going to go for an interview with Tesla cars. And she said to me, what do you think I should say when I get to the interview? And I said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to say. It's a very dangerous question to ask me. But go away and work out what drives Elon Musk. And she went to the interview and they said, so why do you think you're here? This is a car company. Why do you think you're here? And she said, I'm here to get to Mars. And they said, you're in it. You understand the philosophy of this company. So the imagination that goes with innovation, the drive to survive, the drive to success has to be pulled out and pushed to make yourself succeed. And he is succeeding. And I think he will go to Mars. Unbelievable. Anyway, I just want to quickly touch on my own sort of modest journey. When I left the Navy, you don't get a ticket that says you're going to be successful somewhere else. In fact, most guys in my position don't bother to try and enter business. And the reason is they're not familiar with it. Government service is very different to business and innovation and technology. So I found myself, with a little help from one of my American-wise friends, walking the streets of Palo Alto and talking to people and saying, well, what do you think I could do? How can I try and do something? I love technology, I love innovation, I love small companies. I need to have a chance. What do you think I could do? And most of them said, go away, you're white, you're middle-aged, middle class, you know, you're you got a knighthood, for goodness sake. We don't know what that is, go away, please. And in the end, this little company called Liquid Robotics took me on. And they said, we want you to help us with that overseas business, because we don't really understand overseas business very well. We do lots of US DOD, we do lots of US oil and gas, we do lots of US oceanographic survey work, but we don't really understand the overseas bit. So would you help us? And I was with them for 5.5 years. And I learned a huge amount from them. And they were constantly evolving. And this is what innovation is all about, a constant change from one option to the other, constantly looking for better ways to do things. And I set up a bunch of companies, and I joined some companies, and this is just a few of them. So that's my little cyber company in the UK, and here's the mighty Galaxy, who I'm with now and with my friends here. And Galaxy is an extraordinary company because it's nearly failed so many times. And yet you push through the pain barrier, and you find a way, and you find a way. I mean, the directors, and I'm one of them, used to sit around and say, well, you know, we're so close to having no money to pay our people. It's our responsibility to close the company. We should now call in what we call in the UK the receivers. We should bring in the administrators who shut this company down, because we haven't got any more runway, and we haven't got enough money to keep going. And in the end, if you can, you find a way, and you keep innovating, and you push through, and with a bit of luck, you become more successful. There was one company, there was one business that we were pursuing for one of the UK ministries. It was the Department for Education, if I recall, and they asked us to do some quite complicated stuff. And so we did. We went away and we did the software work, and we built the solutions they wanted, and they didn't close the deal. And that was like, you know, the kiss of death. But then, luckily, downstream, we found that all of that work helped us with another contract. So you never quite know how these challenges are going to unfold. And if you listen to the voice on your shoulder saying, no, it's too difficult, give it up, then you'll give up. You've got to listen to the other voice that says, yeah, have courage, keep going, don't stop. And that's the drive that gets you through these innovation challenges. This company here is a US data company. It's based in New York. And those directors and I set this up with, frankly, no money. And 4.5 years later, we're getting somewhere. Okay? That's 4.5 years of sweat equity. 4.5 years of my wife saying to me, do you know what? Why are you doing this? Couldn't you just go and get a proper job? And the answer is, I don't want a proper job. I want to go and take risks. I want to fight through and have a go. So it doesn't really matter what you do. The story's much the same. It's about the challenge and pushing through. Oh, sorry, wrong way. I thought this might just show you how complicated the opportunity space is. So here's me in the middle. I just did this the other day on a whiteboard at home. There's me, and these are all of the things I've tried to do after I left the Navy. And if I go around, there's Galaxy. Look, there you are. But the contact from Galaxy has introduced me to another company, which is a drilling company. And I don't know anything about drilling, but I trust him. So we're doing some work with him. There's Cobweb Cyber. This was my American mentor, who's a retired businessman from Dell, very retired, so he's not exactly current, but God bless him, he's really helped me. And all of those things came from him, and here's another bunch over there. So I don't know which ones are going to be successful. Actually, I do. It's probably Galaxy. I don't know which one's going to be successful, but I also know that if you don't experiment, you won't get anywhere. You have to step forward into the space and take the weight. Okay? This company, Syndesis Health, which was up here, is a subsidiary of this one down, this one here. And that's a New York-based company that acquires health data, longitudinal health records from around the world under very strict regulations about the anonymization of personal information. And it returns that data to accelerate healthcare research and innovation. If you're a hospital with a great research interest in some cardiology issue, but your cohort of samples is very small, you need to be able to access data from other hospitals. But if you're a Colombian hospital, what on earth's the use in getting Swedish coronary data? A completely different profile of genetics, probably, lifestyle, health records. So you need regional information. And so we find that we can bring together cohort information for various clinical requirements into a health business. And we then support research and development for pharma companies, etc. And it's just getting going. And it's really exciting. What I know about health, you could write on the back of a cigarette packet. But it doesn't matter. The point is it's interesting, it's about data, and it's about what I love. It's all possible. So, just going to start winding up now. Here's some of my lessons. So this is from an old boy who's run the Navy, made lots of mistakes, okay? And this is what I've learned. You only get one life, so live it. That's not very difficult to remember. Where you finish is not where you plan to be. That's for sure. I mean, how can you be the son of an immigrant Greek doctor whose grandfather was a tugboat captain and ever expect to be standing here talking to you, having had a career and being knighted by the Queen? I mean, it's just like impossible to imagine. But it isn't impossible to make the effort to see what happens. Making mistakes is the honourable way of learning. Hands up all those who made mistakes. Have we had some? I've made so many mistakes. My wife has said to me so many times, you're a complete. I can't believe you did that. I cannot believe, how did you do that? And the answer is, because I'm human, because I make mistakes. And just as you get older, doesn't make you any better at avoiding mistakes. Don't ask these gentlemen and ladies behind you, because they will lie to you, that you make mistakes all the time, okay? Making mistakes is brilliant. Brilliant is a brilliant gift. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. So if you find somebody who says they don't make mistakes, run a mile. They've got no experience, and they're going to screw things up right in front of you. You want to be surrounded by people who make mistakes. And the reason is you build your life journey on the stepping stones of your experience from those mistakes. So it's really important. Your instincts are more powerful than you think. When your instinct says something to you, listen to it. It's really good. Do you know why? Because the planet's been around for about 5 billion years, and human evolution has been starting with a bloody mud pool somewhere about 4.5 billion years ago, when some algae got excited. And then 300,000 years ago, about 350,000 years ago, human beings, as we recognize them now, sentient, talking, sharing creatures, got going properly, and their instincts are built into your DNA. How can you not tap into the instincts which are so cleverly built into your DNA? It was a survival issue for more millions of years than you can imagine, and now you've got it in the human form and you can use it. Take time to consider your options. You can take time. You don't have to rush into a decision. But don't stop taking your options because you spend too long thinking about it. Do not look back and say, what if? Do not look over your shoulder. Never look over your shoulder and say, oh, well, Dad had done this. I could have done that. Look forward. Always look forward and say, what if? Because your lives are governed by the journey forward, not the past. Take your friends with you. It's very easy when you become successful to become slightly pious, rather pleased with yourself, dangerous, because you need your friends, because you will make mistakes, you will need to be supported. Your friends want you to succeed. They're not jealous of you, they want you to succeed. They want you to be a successful human being. Take your friends with you. Because when things are going really well, you need people you trust around you. And if they fail, if you fail, you need people you trust around you. Okay, so friends are really important. So, what is the single lesson that I'm going to leave you with in order to be amazing entrepreneurs? Never give up. Never give up. If you give up, all you've done is listen to the voice on the shoulder and say, oh, it's all too difficult. You must never give up. You must drive through. You must push yourselves to give yourself a fighting chance and to live the dream that you can. And don't tell yourself that somehow you're being held back by some quality, some aspect, money, background, class, color, gender. Don't listen to that. The history is full of individuals who fought through those journeys of opportunity, and innovation is no different. It's about taking the opportunity and running with it. So I hope you found that interesting, if a bit bullish. I'm happy to take any questions you from any subject, including on that lovely lady in the middle, who I had the great pleasure of knowing, and I miss dearly, and I'm very sad about it. Thank you very much.